The Friday Rugby Preview on Borders Rugby Radio with Stuart Cameron.
Hello and welcome to the Friday Rugby Preview programme, taking a look at tomorrow's games in the Borders. I'm Stuart Cameron, with me is Dale Clancy, and let's begin with the Super 6, where tomorrow Southern Knights are away to Ayrshire Bulls at Millbrae, and it's turned into a bit of a controversial match because the SRU have decided, due to fixture congestion, that the game will now be a double header with double points available. You'll remember, of course, that the match was supposed to be played at the Green Yards, and then Glasgow Warriors' match against Worcester Warriors was called off, and the Bulls were invited to step in. The Knights allowed that to happen. Then the rescheduled game was postponed due to the death of the Queen, when all games across Scotland were scrapped that weekend. So a statement was made today from Scottish Rugby saying that both parties had agreed to make this game stand as a double header. There were many who thought it unfair that the match gets played at Millbrae, especially as it was the Knights who stepped down to allow Ayrshire Bulls to play the Warriors. But I went along to the Green Yards at the request of Bruce Ruthven, the head coach of the Knights, and had a little chat. A big weekend for you at Ayrshire Bulls, who are top of the table, who are putting a lot of points on a lot of teams. They put 40 on Boroughmuir, I think put 60 the other day on Stirling County, so an awesome task. But of course the statement came out from the SRU to say that this is going to be a double header now at Millbrae. Why isn't it at the Green Yards?
That's a good question, Stuart. We obviously, it'll be 3 weeks ago now, game was postponed due to the fall through fixture with the Worcester Warriors and Glasgow Warriors. So, the Ayrshire Bulls ended up going up to Inverness and we postponed our match. So, we felt that the game should have been rescheduled, and if it was a double header, to be here at the Green Yards. However, ultimately we do what we're told. That's the decision that's been made. Both clubs have now agreed for it to be a double header across at Millbrae. It was disappointing. However, it means one less game for us. Given our injuries, that's maybe not a bad thing. But also, it puts a little more focus on this weekend's game. It makes it a lot more exciting. If we can go across there and get a result, which, you never know, anything can happen. We're right back in there for probably that fourth spot in the championship.
OK, so let's talk about the team then. And in recent times, we've seen a lot of new faces coming in. Obviously, we've seen the history of this season as far as injuries are concerned, and you've had quite a few of them, a few long-term as well. It's been really difficult to get a team on the pitch, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been challenging, to say the least. We came out the sprint having picked up quite a few injuries, recruited some players in. Again, some more long-term injuries again, and these injuries, because it's a relatively short season, we've got 10 games. If a guy misses 4 or 5 games, that's half the season done for these guys who have maybe picked up these injuries in the last couple of weeks. So, and you look at the guys who are injured, Harry Borthwick, one of our leading players, Daniel Sudden. These are guys that are really hard to replace. At this time and stage of the season, recruitment's really tough. Everybody's up and running with their own competitions, whether that's up here or south of the border. But again, it does give opportunities to other players. You look at Rudy Brown came back last week after his under-20s layoff. Harry Morris will make his season debut effectively for the Knights. And Sam Derrick continues to get game time in the back row as well. So you look at that just as the back row, all these guys are young fellas.
And you mentioned that. I mean, it's absolutely true. And in a way, in the spirit of Super 6, Southern Knights are playing absolutely to the rules. A lot of youngsters coming through, which is, what you've always told me is the whole idea of Super 6 is to develop young players. Some of the clubs you can't really say that for.
No, you can't. Again, we kind of have to look after ourselves, and we stay true to the directive from Scottish Rugby is, the Super 6 is there to develop not just coaches and management, but also players, primarily probably for the professional game. Now, you can only do that if you're playing these players. We'll go across to Ayrshire Bulls this week with 12 of our squad of 23 are under 21 years of age. We've got 5 or 6 Stage 3 players, 2 or 3 Stage 2 players involved in the relative academies, and other guys like Ben Piggles and Kieran Clark, who are their homegrown talent, who'll get an opportunity. And we're under no illusions it's going to be difficult for us at Bulls, but this is where we lie. This is what we want to do. We want to give these guys opportunities, because ultimately if they end up in an environment with Edinburgh this season or next season, or going in under 20s competition, Six Nations, and they're going to be up against it as well, against some big bruising teams. So it'll be no different Saturday. So this is opportunity they get, and these guys will work hard and they'll do a good job.
So how does it make you feel then, knowing that obviously you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, which is build talent, get youngsters into the squad, and now it seems to me, certainly when it first started at Super 6, it was very close, it was very competitive. I mean, usually a score every game made it really exciting. But now there seems to be this kind of divide with Watsonians and Ayrshire Bulls very much at the top, you and Stirling County at the bottom. In the middle you've got Boroughmuir and Heriots. But it seems to be a very squint league now.
Well, yeah, I mean, the evidence speaks for itself. You look at the number of young players playing for the franchises week in, week out, and you could get pretty bitter and twisted about things, but ultimately that's the directive from Scottish Rugby. We have to look after our own. I'm quite comfortable in my own skin that, where you look at the number of guys that are playing for Southern Knights regular at the moment that are going into age group rugby, and hopefully 2, 3, 4 years' time, the idea is these guys going to represent their country. So that's our big focus, and we feel that we're putting these sort of programmes and plans and game time for these players in place so they can develop.
So is Super 6 still on course as far as you're concerned? Because we're coming up to the 5-year franchise. There could be changes, of course. At the moment, there's no promotion or relegation in this league as well, which some people don't like. You're down towards the bottom end with Stirling County, but you'll still be there next year.
Well, that's it. I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to what we're talking about, what is success for each franchise. Is success being the top of Super 6? Ultimately, what does that mean? Or does it mean, okay, you maybe take the hit, you're maybe not successful in terms of results, but you're developing the next generation of players, which, again, that's a directive from Scottish Rugby. That's something that we've been saying quite a lot about as a Southern Knights franchise, that this is a stepping stone into that pro environment. So. Yeah, again, it can be frustrating. A lot of people will just look at results, but again, you look at the last 2 games. They're games that we possibly should have won. Up at Boroughmuir, we scored 28 points in that second half. Heriots last Friday, we played well, but
good tries, weren't they, from Rudy?
Well, Rudy's just back into things, and he's doing really well, and he's after his layoff, but. Yeah, these guys, with having such a young squad, they're going to make mistakes, they're going to make errors, their learning's quite steep, they're being challenged each week, as well as, as we said, with injuries in the back of that, trying to get any continuity and consistency from one week to the next is really difficult. But again, that's a challenge for me, Lewis and Ross and Alan Tate as well. But it's something that the players are stepping up to. They don't do a lot of whine and complain about things. They get on with it because I think they understand what the long ball is. And moving forward with the Super 6, it needs to be there. I know a lot of people don't agree with it, but for me, as a stepping stone for these young players, getting them good game time at a decent level to jump into the Edinburgh Glasgow outfit, it's paramount that it's there.
This is the big game at Millbrae, double-header at Ayrshire Bulls, who are scoring tries for fun, etc. You're obviously going to be picking a team as best as you can to compete, but how do you actually go to Millbrae these days and be competitive?
Well, again, we have to focus on ourselves. Week in, week out, we will do a lot of analysis on other teams and try and really identify some opportunities for their weaknesses that they have in their game and try and address the strengths to nullify that. But we know the Bulls are strong. They've got a mature pack, an older profile squad. It's going to be tough up there. But again, with our young squad that we've got, we have to try and win our set piece. Get parity there is really important. Try and get tempo into our game and hope a few things go our way. Because we know we've got a squad there that can hurt teams, that can go up there and hurt Bulls. But ultimately, the guys, they're going to find it tough. But we'll go up there, we'll throw everything at it and see where we get to.
And the pressure's off in a way, isn't it? Because, on paper, this should be a very comfortable Bulls win.
Yeah, it's sport's a funny thing, isn't it? Countless games in lots of different sports where the top dog's not won. So we hope it's going to be our day this Saturday. There's no reason why it can't be. We're confident in what we're doing and the players we've got there to go up there and give them a glyph.
Bruce Ruthven, and that game will be played at Millbrae against the Ayrshire Bulls on Saturday at 5 o'clock. Well, Dale Clancy with me. Knights fans think their team have been a little bit hard done by. What do you think?
I think it's one of those, it's been a bit of a kind of whirlwind of a few weeks. But I think the franchise teams know what they're getting into. I know what they are fully aware that they have been heavily supported by Scottish Rugby to get this off the ground. And in long and short of it is that's what Scottish Rugby have said is going to happen, and that's what happens. And I think they've certainly drawn the short straw, because that is a big task to go up to Ayrshire Bulls, try and get anything from that game. I think you can even hear it in Bruce Ruthven's interview there. He is fully aware that they are big underdogs. There's loads of things that you can pick away from that, because I think he sounds heavily frustrated with the way things are going. That probably comes with the fact that they're towards the bottom of the Super 6 league as well. They're part of a process, and it just happens that they've drawn the short straw on this occasion, so it's going to be an uphill battle to try and get anything from it. And I think at the end of the season, if it comes down to it that there's a couple of points between who's in, 4th and 5th, then they'll look back on it and it'll be a bigger point to discuss. But, I genuinely don't think it's going to come to that. But yeah, it's a difficult one, but I think they certainly could. Yeah, they're justifiably hard done by making it a double header.
Now, we spoke last week about the divide in the Super 6 in terms of, compared with when it first started. Lots of close games, some great standard of rugby, and very, very exciting. Now it's very, very different. We've got the Watsonians team, we've got the Ayrshire Bulls, who have gone into the stratosphere compared with the other four. Let's be perfectly honest. How has that happened?
Yeah, I think they all had a pool of players to try and pick from, and obviously they directed from the Scottish Rugby, which is a common sentence which has been said over the last couple of minutes, but the idea was to try and get as many people playing rugby as possible. I think the clubs maintained a bit of their identity going forward. So Ayrshire Bulls were a big, robust pack. Watsonians were pretty expansive, but at the time they were losing games. And Melrose had a very good pack, and they were pretty classy behind the scrum. I think over the last couple of seasons and after COVID, there's been a big change in what is attracting people to those clubs. And I think in the Borders, this conversation can go many ways. One problem the Borders has is that we're not really taken to Southern Knights, which I think is such a shame, because it wouldn't be the first time we've had the opportunity to have some sort of franchise or club in the region, and there's too much infighting. At the end of the day, we need players playing. We want success stories from the Borders, whether it be for Hawick, Selkirk, Peebles, Langham. We want to give them a platform. These are community clubs that need to try and get the players playing at the highest level, but the players have to be able to want that as well. I think Southern Knights have been the harshest done by, because they've lost a lot of players as they've kind of transitioned. I don't know what will change. The good thing from their point, if to pick some positives from it, Sam Derrick and Aidan Cross have came through. Notable players have been playing that one. We covered them last year when, in umpteen games, they were very good players, but now they're playing at a higher level. They're scoring tries and they're making an impact. It might be a difficult couple of years for the Southern Knights before they really, start to challenge again. But these teams, franchise teams, they go through cycles because it's a different method of recruiting players.
Well, our commentary match tomorrow is at Philiphaugh. 3rd place Selkirk against 2nd place Edinburgh Accies in the Premiership. Selkirk unbeaten, and Accies losing by 1 point last week to Hawick. Let's check in with Selkirk head coach, and that is Scott White, with his team news.
So this week, obviously, we welcome Edinburgh Accies to Philiphaugh, both equal in points and 11 points. Both had fairly positive starts to the season. They'll obviously be keen to kick on from getting defeated at home last week by Hawick. But, we performed well up at Musselburgh in the first half, and, we're really good for 15 minutes against Glasgow Hawks. And for us at the moment, it's just about trying to put consistency of performance together for longer periods of time and trying to stay in the game for 80 minutes. We've worked on a few different things this week, to take into Edinburgh Accies, just in terms of where they're strong, and obviously looking at kind of where areas that we feel that we can exploit. So, look, we know we've got to be good to beat Accies. They come down, they beat us down at Philiphaugh last year. They're obviously a top 4 team as well last year, so they'll be keen to kick on. But for us at the moment, we just keep ticking along, week by week focus, one game at a time. And this week we're blessed selection wise, so we've got a few people back from James Bett's wedding, which was last week, and then a few people returning from injury as well. So selection's been very hard this week. You've got the likes of Aaron McComb, Kieran White, Andrew Grant-Sutty, Josh Welsh, James Bett, all returning to the kind of fold. We've obviously got to back the people that have been performing the last few weeks, so that'll be noticed in selection. The only unavailability this week is Henry Clarkson on the wing, who's obviously converted from triple jump last year, and he's been a really, really positive impact in terms of the squad and played very well. So it's a shame for Henry. He's out for a couple of weeks with an ankle injury. But as I said, we're obviously fortunate enough this week that we've got a few boys returning from injury. So look, it'll be really exciting and one that we're really looking forward to.
Well, it has to be the match of the day in terms of two informed teams going head to head.
Yeah, on paper, when I was actually, I kind of passed the Philippoch ground to go home, and as you can see in the board, Edinburgh Accies and the date, and even looking at that, I think at the beginning of the season it's a different game. You know, when you look at the fixture list a few games in, you look at Selkirk, Edinburgh Accies, and it's just another game. But I think the way that both teams have started the season makes it a really, really exciting one. I think Edinburgh Accies' huge win against Mar was a real eye opener for other teams, and I'd said I'd kind of nailed my colours to the mast by saying that Scott White would be under a lot of pressure if he didn't get results, because he's not really had too much recruitment. He's had some good players come in, but if results didn't go his way, then you know the excuse of injuries wanes slightly, and I think you can now start to see the impact that the experience of Scott White is having on that team, and they're getting success as well. Like, who would have thought at the beginning of the season that they would beat Hawks and they would get a draw against Hawick to start their season, and then obviously get a win on the road at Musselburgh, which is not a nice place to go if you're a tourist, never mind a rugby player. So, you know, it's been a really, really positive start for Selkirk, and I love to see that. I think it's great, because I did worry that they perhaps might have been dragged into a battle. However, this is then going to be their barometer of where they are now, because a border derby doesn't tell you how good you're going to be, I don't think. I think playing teams like Edinburgh Accies, their expansive brand of rugby, it'll be a cracking game, because Selkirk like to chuck the ball about too.
Well, Robin Purdy leading the commentary team tomorrow for that one. Scott Tomlinson will be summarising. Don't forget exclusive live commentary on Borders Rugby Radio between 2 and 5 with all the latest score updates as they happen. Now at Mansfield Park, Hawick are at home to Heriot, so points at stake in the Premiership, as well as the Bill McLaren Shield, and also a new Norman Sudden Memorial Shield to be played for in memory of the late great former Greens prop, and it will be competed for between Hawick and Heriots from now on, as apparently this fixture between the two clubs was always Norman's favourite match in his career. We hear now from head coach Matty Douglas.
Looking into Saturday, I think it's one that we're pretty excited for. After a good win on the road at Accies, we saw the game out well, and challenge was to put these teams under pressure away from home, and we did that. And it's now about getting back to Mansfield, sticking to what we're good at, and building another 80-minute performance. Heriots have had a tough start to life back in the Premiership, but they're a physical side, and they'll be coming down to get a win, so we're going to have to be switched on and start to back up performances, and you need to be picking up points early on in the season, as it looks like it's going to be a congested league this year. Forward pack stays the same. Hector Patterson is injured, so Gareth Welsh comes back for injury and he starts at 9. Lewis Ferguson comes in on the wing for Ronan McKean, who drops to the bench, and Sean Fairbairn returns to the squad. He comes onto the bench after an injury at Hawick 7. So it's a quite consistent squad this week, and we've got a lot of boys pushing for places who will be in the 4. So competition for places is great to have. Kind of added incentive on Saturday, obviously, the playing for the Bill McLaren Shield and the Norman Sudden Memorial Shield. Norman was a huge follower in Hawick rugby, and one of Hawick's greatest players. So I know that Norman loved playing against Heriots. It was his favourite game to play in, so this is why the family have decided to play for this shield when Hawick play Heriots. So I know the family links within the club at the minute, and also around the team. So it'll be an emotional day for the family, I would say, but it's one that the players are looking forward to playing for that, and be great to see the shield getting presented after the game.
A nice touch all round, and that will add a little bit of extra spice to a game that should, on form, go the way of the Greens.
Yeah, I was actually covering the Heriots, I think it was Boroughmuir game a few months ago, and they also played for a similar type of shield, and I think that's the nice thing that these historic clubs bring to this. They've been littered with traditional players and players who have played at the highest level and served their towns and their clubs really well, and it's a nice nod to Norman Sudden that they're going to be playing for that shield, and it'll be a nice little addition to what should be a good clash as well. Obviously Heriots, as Matty alluded to, have had a difficult start to the season. I don't think Hoyk would have been happy with getting their season off with a draw, but they've certainly managed to put in a couple of good performances, especially that tight win on the road against Edinburgh Accies. So things are certainly looking up at Mansfield, and they'll be hoping to build on that with a win and picking up the Shields.
And it'll be Ewan Welsh there reporting for us on that one. Well, in the other Premiership match involving Borders teams, Jed Forest have their third game in a row at home, this time against Musselburgh. So it's 8th versus 9th, and Jed head coach Andrew Brown gave us his assessment.
This week we're looking to progress again. Each week I feel that the lads are getting better and better. We scored 5 tries last weekend against Hawks, and we were unlucky not to win the game. A little bit of indiscipline cost us, which is a shame because so far this season it's been excellent. The discipline's been excellent. The pack put us on the front foot, which got us going forward and let us win the try count. All led from the front, which skipper Clark Skeldon, who's playing out of his skin at the moment. We've got a few lads back this week. Mason Cullen's back after injury, along with Lewis and Gregor. They're both back this week, and Matthew Atkinson and John Story, the 2 Cumbrian imports, are also back in the mix and available. Last week, seeing a couple of the younger lads sort of really performing. Owen Cranston in 13 played exceptional, and obviously Lewis Walker as well had a great game. Looking forward to the game. All the lads are positive for the right outcome.
Andrew Brown, and we're into round 4 now, so no better time for Jed to put some space between themselves and Musselburgh.
Yeah, especially with the 3 home games on the bounce, and I think to round that off, a fixture against Musselburgh is a good one, especially after Selkirk put them with the sword last week and away from home. So they're a team that haven't really hit their straps this season at all. They've not really built on what has been developed over the last few years from Graham Patterson, who's kind of taken them through the leagues. Ex-People's man, he's kind of taken Musselburgh up to the Premiership, and they've not really been able to push on from there. So from a Jed point of view, obviously they've been performing a lot better than perhaps I predicted as well. It shows you how much I know about rugby. They've been putting in some good performances, but perhaps the results just not going their way. Been scoring a lot of points as well, which is really encouraging. So I don't know what the outcome of Mr. Buckley's red card was, but
I don't know, but I'm sure we'll be off for a few weeks probably.
Yeah, so that'll be a big loss for them as well. Especially he's been settling into that 10 jersey pretty nicely. So hopefully they can get the win there. It's a good fixture for them and put some space in between them so they can get a little bit of confidence and push up the league.
Well, let's go into National 1, and while all our teams are home in the Premiership, the opposite is the case in this league. All 3 on their travels, and let's start with unbeaten Gala, who have 10 points from both their games so far in the bag. But how will they do on the road as they face Dundee? Well, here's head coach Stuart Johnson.
Away to Dundee this weekend, which will be their first home game of the season, so I'm sure they'll be looking forward to that. They've had a tough start to the season with Biggar away and Highland away. Picked up 1 losing bonus point, but they've scored some points in the process, especially Highland away where they scored 22. But this isn't going to be an easy fixture. We know we need to improve a lot on our performance from Aberdeen last weekend. Picked up the bonus point, but our performance wasn't up to our usual standards, so there's a lot to work on this week. Team-wise is fairly settled going up to Dundee. Lachlan Johnson is unfortunately unavailable this week due to work. And Tim McAvanagh is also unavailable. So Jack Niven comes in for a start at 9, and good to welcome back Andrew Mitchell into the starting team.
Well, performing at home is one thing, but taking that form on the road is a different experience altogether. Having said that, you would expect Gala to return to Netherdale with a win. Yeah,
I would think so. It was really good listening when I was away last weekend, coming back and listening to the coverage. It was really great to hear Gala were in complete control, and Aberdeen are obviously, they dropped down from the Premiership, so it was obviously going to be a difficult game. It's always a long travel for Aberdeen as well, but Gala put in another polished performance, and I think that going on from the influence that Fraser Thompson gave them, and now Jono's given them at Gala, that they seem to be putting their hand up to be the favourites so far. I know Robin Purdy was mentioning about Kelso. He really fancies Kelso this season, but I think that it's going to be a very, very tight league again, but Gala are going certainly the right direction to put their hand up for promotion.
Well, Melrose will travel to Millbrae along with the Southern Knights as the warm-up match to the Super 6 double-header, and we spoke with Melrose boss Bert Grigg about this one against Ayr.
Yeah, obviously a good win at home last week to Watsonians, travelling on the road up to Ayr. this weekend. Hopefully, try and back up the result. Unfortunately, last year it wasn't really our best performance, to say the least. So kind of owe them something a little bit. So there'll be a bit of extra sort of fire in the boys' bellies in terms of playing against there again. The team's relatively unchanged. Unfortunately, Angus Runciman's attending a wedding, and Elliot Ruthven has got a family event, so we're a couple of sort of starters down, but the team should be much the same as it was last week. Hoping for another sort of big performance from James O'Neill in the back row was outstanding last week, along with sort of Bruce Colvin and Stuart Hutchison at 9 and 10 were really key for us. So yeah, just hoping that we can play that sort of style of rugby away from home. Look to take the game to air and get another win on the board to keep us near the top of that table.
Certainly a good result last week for them against Watsonians, getting 40 points on the board. Colvin and Hutchison combo at 9 and 10 working very well, as you would expect.
Yeah, there's about 128 years of rugby experience there, and I think Stuart Hutchison's only 28. So, no, they bring a lot of experience, and I think that's part of probably the bigger picture when we were talking about the Super Six stuff beforehand, because they're two really experienced players that are now contributing towards the Melrose cause now, which I think is great because they've been great servants to that club in whatever shirt they've been wearing. So they're helping the younger players come through and develop, and instilling that kind of culture of winning, because they've won everything that there is to win in the game. So it's certainly at an amateur level, but it's certainly a good asset to have, and Bruce will be well rested after being in, I think he was in Spain for a week, so he's obviously going to be well rested and ready to go for Melrose at the weekend.
Topping up his tan yet again. Well, Kelso of course visit Biggar to play their match at Hartree Mill, both sides unbeaten, and a tough ask for Kelso for sure. Here's Director of Rugby at Kelso, Neil Hinnigan.
Kelso travel up to Hartree Mill this Saturday to face Biggar, who are unbeaten this season, as well as Kelso, 2 from 2, so something's got to give on that front, and it's going to be a hard game. Biggar is a renowned tough place to go and get a result for any team in Scottish rugby, so it's one we're going to have to really concentrate hard on and roll up our sleeves. I think the weather's just starting to break a little bit, so could be one of those windy, wet days at Hartree Mill where you've got to be one of the purest and toughest teams to get a result. So that's kind of where we are, and we know that as a team, and we do look forward to that challenge. Every game in this league is tough, so every week poses a different challenge, and the elements and the fact that Biggar are a good side is going to make it a very hard place to get a result. But if we can get that result, it really puts us in a great position going forward, and obviously Biggar will be thinking the same. If they can get another win, they're in a great position. So yeah, it's one that's one to look forward to, and I think all our travelling support and the Biggar home fans, etc., all looking forward to this one. On the injury front, we're a little bit down on players. We've lost our vice captain Archie Cummins to a hand injury last week, and he's out for a month, possibly longer, so that's a bit of a blow for us. So Cammy Thompson moves back from the second row to the back row, and Keith McNeil returns to the fray. He's been out for about 3 weeks, so that's a timely one for us. Greg Ponton comes back from his holiday last week, and he replaces Cammy Brown, who is now on holiday, so that's worked itself out a little bit. And Angus Roberts remains on the sidelines for another week. So overall, we're probably missing 4 or 5 guys, but there's a couple of guys make debuts this week who have been working hard with the twos, with the seconds team, the Sharks, and they've deserved the shot. So Harry Cooper comes in on the bench as back sub. Harry's just returned to the club after being away for 3 or 4 years, where he's starting up his own business and so on. So he's a good Kelso lad that's looking to make an impact this season. So good luck to Harry. Greg Cecil returns to the bench as well. He was left out the team last week, but returns this week due to more injuries. So yeah, there's a little bit of a shuffle going on, but ultimately we've still got a fairly strong team, and one we're confident in. We can go there and give a good account of ourselves, and hopefully we can get the win, and if not, we can get something out of the game, because away from home, any points you can get is vital in this league.
Hard to get anything from a visit to Hartree Mill.
Yeah, a pint from a bigger fan would be nice as well. But yeah, it's a difficult place to go for all teams. They've been up to the Premiership. They've been, in the lower reaches of the leagues. But certainly over the last kind of couple of decades, they've been there or thereabouts. And it is such a difficult place to go. Obviously, my time with Peebles, it was our kind of our derby essentially. And I don't think I've ever seen the sun shine on bigger. You were always going there, and it was windy. It was clatchy underfoot, so that it was always challenging conditions. But it was always a good battle. They are a robust team. They've got like say Big Borth back there. Jardin, who is a bigger lad, he went to Melrose. He's came back, so they've got a lot of classy players. They've got the likes of Ewan McCara, who's left, and he's went and played a bit of Super Six as well. So they've got a real good rugby culture in that town. It is. I think a lot of people will be kind of raising their eyebrows at the moment that I'm praising bigger, but it's a difficult place to play. But they've certainly got their shopping order at Hartree Mill.
Well, into National 2 we go. Peebles are unbeaten, but they face probably their toughest challenge to date at Preston Lodge. And their head coach, of course, is Ian Chisholm.
We're all looking forward to getting back on the pitch this Saturday. I think last weekend's result against Dumfries, although we won, it left a lot of boys frustrated, and they wanted to right a few wrongs and get their hands on the ball and do some damage. Playing away at Preston Lodge, it's always a tough shift, and look, I've got a lot of respect for what they're building there. I like the way they play the game. They're getting 2 teams out every week, and they've got some quality players there. So we've had a look at the Melrose game in pre-season and the Boroughmuir game. And look, I think it's got to be a quality game if the weather holds. If the weather doesn't hold, I think there'll be a lot of kicking. We've accounted for that. We're not going to change how we approach the game. We're getting better every week, so we just need to keep nailing our detail, and the puzzle will come together. We're trying to sell a new way of playing and shift the mindset here, and boys are slowly getting it. There's a few changes to our squad this week. Kenny Clyde and Ron McKeever, they both work offshore, so they're both away for the next wee while, but we'll really miss them. They were quality last weekend, so looking forward to getting them back. But in their place, Finlay Collins returns to the squad after being on holiday and a good showing for the Reds, and Murdo Anderson's back after being a naughty boy at Gala Sevens with the Craig Dodds incident. There's a few maybes for our squad. Ryan McConnell, he could be in the squad if he gets through tonight's session, pain free. Adam McDonald, Jack Harrison, Buster Davidson, they drop out from the squad entirely through injury. It's nothing serious. We're just giving them a wee week to recover, and the squad is as follows at the moment. Willie Aitken, John Napier, John Gray, Cammy Pye and Ross Brown are in the second row. Finlay Collins, Murdo Anderson captain, and Ruddy Guinea are in the back row. Dave Collins and Donald Anderson keep their places at halfbacks, with James Dow, myself in at 12, and Rob Harrison moves from the back row into 13, with Hamish Barber moving out the wing from fullback to accommodate 17-year-old Frey McKeever. On the bench we have Lewis Copeland, who we're transitioning to a tight head, and he's moving about a lot, and he could be, with only 4 subs on the bench, he could be instrumental for us, because he can play anywhere from 1 to 8 if he's able to nail down tight head prop. Andrew Brown keeps his place, and youngster 18-year-old Finlay Sinclair, he actually played 12 for the Reds last weekend up at Linlithgow, and he played really, really well. He's a big, aggressive ball carrier. He gets it. He's full of energy, and he's just a nice kid. So we're really looking forward to seeing how he gets on. Number 19, Buster Davidson. He's named at the moment, but he's struggling with a bit of a hamstring injury, and we're keen to make sure that he has a full recovery. But luckily for us, Scott Stoddart, he's been back training this week after a hamstring injury. He's in the frame, but also Neil Pate. He's been training and playing really well. So look, we're looking forward to this weekend. Another opportunity to stress test where we are. We treat Saturdays as our biggest training session, so looking forward to it.
Absolutely incredible, that man. Enthusiasm just pouring out of him.
Yeah, and obviously I've still got very close ties to Peebles, and particularly like Greg Rayburn, and I got a lot of information and feedback off of him, just in terms of how he's enjoying it, and they absolutely love it. I said last week that I would have loved to have been coached under Ian Chisholm, because I just think he's got a really intelligent rugby mindset. He's obviously got a great culture as well, because the boys are really, really buying into it. And you hear the names there, like, I could probably speak for another half hour on the names that he's listed, but I'm sure it would make for a really good show. But even that, even Adam McDonald, who's been playing 12, is a player who perhaps after age grade rugby just kind of drifted away. He's obviously back and getting a real crack of it. Murdo Anderson coming back in the squad's good after his ban, but I just think that he's starting to treat the individuals as rugby players and not just good people's players that have been there for a long time. He's instilling a really, really good culture there, and I absolutely love to see it.
Well, on to Berwick, and they finally got their season underway at Boroughmuir last week with a defeat at Meggetland. Head coach Colin Young's been looking forward to their home game against Falkirk.
After our defeat last weekend to Boroughmuir, we were wanting to put all the wrongs right. So we didn't feel like we were too far out of the game against Boroughmuir. Maybe just got a little bit nervous with not playing for a couple of weeks, just due to one thing and another. We looked like we were a little bit off the pace to begin with. We fought right to the end, which was a pleasing aspect for us. A couple of changes, so we've got a few normal familiar faces back this weekend. Darren Goodfellow, who was away last weekend on a holiday, and Ryan Wilson, who was injured, to come back into the squad. We have got Rory Hindhoff coming back from Musselburgh this weekend, starting at 15 also. We made a couple of changes personnel, so hopefully we're a little bit stronger, and look forward to the challenge for Falkirk. Don't really know much about them, what kind of rugby they play, but hopefully it's nice and dry and calm at Scrimmerson, and we can put on a show for the spectators.
Well, it's been a very long time since Berwick lost at Scrimmerson, 2 or 3 years, I think.
Yeah, obviously they've been a couple of years. They've been looking to try and get promotion, and they've built that on the back of really solid home form. I kind of said last week, if win, lose or draw, it wasn't going to be a real barometer of where they are because of the two teams, one getting relegated, one getting promoted, meeting in the middle. And they'll be disappointed. You can hear it in Colin Young's voice how disappointed he sounds, and obviously they'll be looking to try and make amends for that and build on that good home form, because Scrimmerston is a difficult place. It's a bit like Hartree Mill, to be fair. It's a difficult place to play. The conditions are usually quite challenging because of the wind that you get there, but that's habitual for the Berwick players. Like, they'll absolutely love that. So hopefully they can get that win. It would be nothing better than to see them get a win and really try and consolidate their position in that league. It's early days. The league's not going to be over in a fortnight, so they'll be looking to try and build on some positive home form and really cement their position.
Well, in National 1, Duns visit Haddington, while in the second division, Langham will take on Dunbar. That's taking place at Milntown. Hoytland Dean, they've got a home game with Pennycook, and former president Gary Alexander's been looking forward to that game.
We're hoping to get our season up and running against Pennycook in terms of a first league victory. It's been a kind of strange season so far. It started well enough. We were training with Hoyk initially, which was great for the boys, being exposed to training alongside players and coaches for the Prem 1 team. So that went well enough, and a couple of pre-season games went okay against Galloway M and Earlston. But we simply lost all momentum. 3 weeks with no game. Dunbar weren't able to fulfil the Shield game. Pennycook was off with no referee, and then of course Dalkeith because of the passing of the Queen. So we finally got a league game last week against Livingston. Started well enough, but it was a disappointing defeat in the end. 47-13. Livingston played particularly well in the second half, but we suffered a big blow early doors. Dave Montgomery, our new captain, he'd already had some storming runs, but he suffered ankle ligament damage. So the prognosis for him is probably 8 to 12 weeks. Picked up 2 or 3 other injuries as well. So not quite sure where we are with selection at this point, but hopefully we can do well. Pennycook themselves, they are coming with a weekend team. Originally Saturday was a blank week for us, but we're being rescheduled against Pennycook. They've got boys away at a wedding, a couple of stag do's, so fair dues are coming down with a weaker side. And even fairer dues, they've made great efforts to fulfil their second 15 fixture as well against Walkerburn, because they were conscious that Walkerburn are trying to get themselves back up and running again. So I think there's a few pairs of boots getting dusted off to play the second 15 game, but we'll be very happy to have them down. We've got a great relationship with Pennycook, and we just hope we can get the boys playing to the best of their ability again. Got the cobwebs blown away last week, and if we can get a performance, hopefully we can get that very first league win of the season.
and we wish them all the best. No East League 3 games this weekend, and Kelso ladies match against Liberton is also off. Liberton can't field a team, but they did get their first win of the season last week on the road to Dundee Valkyries, and they won 44 points to 5. Great start for a very new team, and Director of Rugby at Kelso ladies, Ian Anderson, was absolutely over the moon.
We are as proud as punch with the team, with a new coaching staff, 7 new players and 4 under-20s. What a start. It just is amazing how they came together, helped each other, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season.
Well, that reaction shows you what it means to players, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that it's for any team to get a big win on the road's obviously a great result, and you can hear from Ian there how chuffed he is that the team have got off to a great start with a win. And it's going to take a bit of time, as we mentioned last week, and it take a bit of time for the female participation in the Borders to really push on like it maybe has in the Central Belt, but that's certainly a great start. I know the Kelso ladies were in at Borders College a couple of weeks ago trying to recruit some players and getting their message out that they're looking to try and build a team again, and just great to get 44 points on the road for any team's a great result, and Ian Anderson, he's chuffed a bit, so a great start for them, and they'll be disappointed that the game's off this weekend, but I'm sure they'll start building towards the next fixture.
Well, that's just about it for today. My thanks to Dale Clancy, of course. Do join us live for Borders Rugby Special tomorrow at 2 o'clock for 3 hours of rugby from Philip Hawke. It's Selkirk against Edinburgh Accies in National 1. Should be an absolute cracker. We'll be back next Friday for our Friday rugby preview. But for now, from Dale Clancy and myself, bye for now.